Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the grayscale trusts. We're going to go over a couple dividend distributions from the YieldMax ETFs and Roundhill, and also what the heck happened in the markets today. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so just to show you guys the portfolio first. As you can see, nothing's changed in terms of the grayscale trust. Haven't bought any, haven't sold any. There are reasons for that. We're kind of moving some money around right now over the next course of the next couple of weeks. So the asset purchases are actually going to go down significantly, probably until the end of next week, and then we'll start picking back up again. So in terms of what happened today in the markets, if I'm not mistaken, the markets absolutely capitulated today. It was just a bad day in general for stocks. So today is Wednesday. Let's take a look at the calendar here. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe, there is actually some Fed members. Oh, that's Monday. Sorry, wrong day. There are some Fed members speaking this week. So as you guys saw, Powell spoke on Monday. So we did have a speech here by another Fed member also as well, as you guys can see down there, Fed Barkin speech. And there's some other speeches. Okay, so you got Fed Waller. Probably have a few others would be my guess. And my guess, if I had to say, the beige book as well. That's also interesting. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that gives the summary of economic projections. If you guys don't know what that is, you can look it up in your own time. I'm not going to explain it here, but it's a pretty big deal. So basically, my guess is that the Fed members came out and said something that the markets did not want to hear. And as a result of that, the markets kind of really sold off. So I can show you right here. I actually have to. So you can see this big fat weekly red candle, but I'm just going to show you guys on the daily here just how disgustingly fat this was. So the markets did sell off very significantly today. So that's not quite accurate. I think at the close, the entire drawdown on the NASDAQ was roughly about 2.5% or 2.6% or something like that. But there were pretty large drops. I mean, it wasn't small by any means. And you can see crypto's already starting to pull back. I think that's probably temporary, if I'm being honest. But it's, again, the macros are going to affect things until they're not. So in terms of crypto buys, we did actually buy about $500 worth of Filecoin today. Again, we are stacking up the heaviest amount of money in the positions we're most bullish on. One of those is Filecoin and then AIOZ. So let's go over the dividend distributions. So YMAX, YMAG, and ULTY, you can see here is 65 cents per share for YMAX, 63 cents for YMAG, and almost $1 for ULTY. We have both YMAX and YMAG. We do not have ULTY because of the whole drop in share price every month thing. We're just not digging that so much. You guys can see the X and record date is today. If you didn't get the shares today, then you basically have until the next X date to pick up shares. Payment date is going to be tomorrow, so that's always nice. And again, the dividends are relatively consistent at this point. I think YMAG was actually higher than last month. So then we also have QDTE and XDTE. So 31 cents paid on QDTE per share. Again, the X date is tomorrow. So if you didn't get it today, then you'll have basically another week or something like that. You can kind of see what so the next X date is going to be on the 25th. So basically you would have until the 25th to pick up shares if you missed this particular payout. Again, this is on a weekly basis. So now I'll go down to XDTE here, which is the S&P version. We do have both of these, just so y'all know. So 20 cents per share on XDTE, and again, that does pay in a couple of days. X date's the same for both of these. So we did actually add some. So you can see the portfolio is down here massively. We got kind of walloped today. I'm pretty sure everybody that's in the markets got walloped today in stocks, so down 4%. But looking at the all-time high, I mean, when in doubt, zoom out, right? So every single time we've seen one of these huge pullbacks, what has it done? It's ultimately went higher up every single time, okay? So we've had like a dozen of these over the course of this portfolio, even this big, fat, huge one back here in March. And what did it do? It eventually went up. So that's kind of how we're looking at this. It's just another dip buying opportunity as far as we're concerned. So I want to point out here that we did pick up some new stuff. I'll go more over this over the weekend, but we did get some more SPYT, some more YBIT, I think a little tiny bit more YMAG, some more AIPI, and some more XDTE, as you guys can see here. So we're going to get pretty good payments from XDTE and QDTE coming up. I'm not exactly sure how much it's going to be. Maybe like it might be roughly estimated around $200 for the month on a per month basis or something like that. So anyways, getting into the Grayscale Trust here, the good thing I suppose about this is that crypto held up pretty well regardless of the onslaught in the markets. So you guys can see that a lot of the Grayscale Trusts were actually not really all that down. A couple of them were up, and pretty much all of them, maybe except for these two right here, were only down slightly or mostly flat. So LTCN, we are getting this golden cross on these EMAs. Again, we're pushing into resistance. The candle is currently above the EMAs on the daily time frame here, so that's always a good sign. Very bullish, in my opinion. But once again, we got to see this confirm on the weekly. So weekly does actually also look quite bullish. About to get that EMA golden cross on the RSI. Still looking to get a golden cross on the MACD. We kind of rode this trend line like I told you guys before and then took off. That's exactly what I expected would happen. Why? Because we did the exact same thing back here and then boom, took off like a rocket ship, and back here too. And then boom, took off like a rocket ship. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and say that I think that this trend line still is going to be support until we get a confirmation above these EMAs on the weekly time frame. But even then, the price would be stuck in between the EMAs as support and the resistance zone up here as resistance. So we need to get above resistance to be truly bullish, to go back up to 54 per share, in my opinion. So as of right now, I would still say 18 to roughly about $19 a share is going to be your support there. The resistance is 24 to 26, so LTCN is pretty much already at that resistance zone, and then you have 54 above that. So if there is a pullback, you could be looking at maybe a 22% pullback. I'm not going to say it's going to pull back at this point. I mean, this looks like a basing out pattern, what usually happens before it goes to the upside. Or this could also be seen as accumulation. A lot of people call it accumulation. So I would say overall, likely it's probably not going to come down a lot from this point, but it's good to know these zones anyways, in case you want to pick it up at certain prices. So if it comes back down to the zone, gets to the top of resistance, you're looking at 46%, and then all the way up there to that swing high at 192% gain. So BCHG, can pop down onto the daily time frame here real quick. Take a look at this, because I know this is like a lot of people's favorite one is BCHG. So we did get a confirmed breakout above the EMAs. They are currently giving us a golden cross. It's in the process of happening. What usually happens on the golden cross? I've talked about this with you guys countless times on how we swing trade stocks. Usually you get a breakout, you get the golden cross, which happened right here on the 15th, so 2 days ago, and then you get a retest. You don't always get a retest, but a lot of times you do actually get a retest. So a good example of this would be, like, I really got to zoom out for this because crypto is just crazy like that. So we didn't exactly get we got a series of death crosses and golden crosses here. So this golden cross right here, you can see the blue EMA curling up. We got the golden cross here. It took off a little bit, and then what happened? We got a retest, and then boom, took off like a rocket ship. Now, in the process of it going up, it can actually have pullbacks along the way, so do expect that. Again, these EMAs are a retracement tool. That's usually what happens. So as of right now, I'm going to go over to the weekly, and we'll talk about buy and sell zones. So in my opinion, until we get a weekly close above these EMAs, I'm still going to say that likely this zone, so 690 to 770-ish, somewhere in there, is going to be support. But even if it gets above the EMAs, we are still locked in between the EMAs and the top of resistance here. So 1040 to 1260 on that resistance zone, and then above that 18 to 20, and then 24 respectively. So if we get that pullback into support, just understand it could be a pretty big pullback, 38%. I'm not saying it's going to happen. There's no guarantees that it has to happen, but it's possible. So from the pullback all the way up to the resistance here is 70%, and then you have 170% and 220% respectively. And keep in mind when we're going through these charts that every single one of these does also have a golden cross either currently happening on the RSI or about to happen on the RSI. So the fact that these are all kind of happening at once tells me that likely the crypto markets as a whole is getting ready to go bullish. So HZEN, basically this is the Grayscale Horizon Trust. We're looking for a breakout here. If we get it, we'll be heading up to 690 to 810 roughly, and then 10 and a quarter above, or 10 and a half above and beyond that. As long as it's within this wedge, I would still say this support is going to be the buy zone. So roughly about 390 to 410. So we'll just measure it from here. So if it breaks out, you're looking at about 40% to roughly an 80% move. If it gets a pullback, which could happen, then it becomes 111% to 176%. But we've been going over these trusts for eons at this point, multiple times a week. So if you are new to this channel, just finding out about these trusts, it's just a timing issue. But if you knew about these and you chose not to buy down here, then I don't know what to tell you about that. So that's HZEN. So ETCG. Still within the channel here. I suspect that's not going to change until the spot Ether ETFs start actually trading next week. So 11 to 13 is what we're looking at for support. And then I'd be looking at the swing high all the way up here for a potential profit target. Because again, from the current price to this resistance zone top all the way up here is not really even that big of a move for crypto. So about 71%. I suppose if you really just wanted to snipe trade this thing, you could go for the top of this first resistance at just shy of $16 and still get 35%. So ETH, I would say based on this chart, it's already anticipating a potential listing that's actually going to happen next week. Again, that's speculation for the spot Ether ETFs, but it does also look like we have potentially some kind of bull flag here. It's not perfect, but it does look quite bullish if you ask me. So regardless, we came back and retested support as predicted, and now we're going up. So in my opinion, it could still come back down here to support. So 25 to 29, and then 40 to 47 on the resistance there. And then we have this cup and handle target. So the target is this white line all the way up here. So if there is a pullback, it's not as steep as the other one, so about 23%, but it could just be another golden opportunity to buy the dip. So from going to support all the way up to that swing high, if there is a 78% move, I think, in my opinion, once these spot Ether ETFs are actually trading, I think it would go much higher than that on ETH. That's just my opinion, though. So PhilG, it's looking kind of iffy at this point. I can't really say that this is looking to go down further, although it's a red candle. That's not exactly encouraging. But this is basically a doji candle. It's an indecision candle, meaning it doesn't know if it wants to go up or down yet. So as of right now, because there is no confirmation move, bullish or bearish at the moment, I would still say this support is going to be the buy zone, so 37 to 40. And then the swing high up here is $400. So that move would then be about an 865% gain. You have an inverse head and shoulders target here, but again, I think that's kind of a moot point because if it gets back to all-time highs, it's going to go past this anyways. So GBAT, you guys can see we're retesting this flip zone. It's getting pretty close to the apex of its move. Again, we could trade within here or within this apex for maybe like another couple of weeks before it decides what direction it wants to go. I would say this thing is probably going to go bullish if you ask me. So once again, support is between roughly about 790 to 1010. Your all-time high is up there at 32. So I'll just measure it from current price since we're pretty much at support to the all-time high is 224% move. GLIV, this thing is very similar to Phil G, very indecisive. I would say likely, at least until we get above this trend line, the support's going to be down here between 12 to 15. And then the all-time high is up here at 80. And then you have this inverse head and shoulders target, which is 84. Which again I would say is irrelevant, because if it goes to all-time highs, it's probably going to go. It's most likely going to go to $84. I wouldn't doubt it. The pullback risk here is 50%. So not financial advice, but maybe not a bad idea to consider keeping some dry powder on the side just in case. Again, that's how we strategize. Usually we don't go all in on one level unless we're swing trading specifically. That's just how we do it, but you guys can do however you want. So 507% gain there. G-Link, so it did look like we were going to break out. We got a pullback. So once again, until we get this breakout, the support here is going to be between 65 to 85. Resistance is all the way up at the highs there at 220. So you're looking potentially at roughly about 190% move. That's, again, if you get your pricing on your cost basis, roughly about the middle of that zone. That's how we price this. So GSAW got rejected here. I don't think it has anything to do with crypto. I think it's just the fact that the markets were extremely bearish today. So that kind of sucks. But once again, I would not buy this unless it got back down to support. I think GSAW's already kind of, the ship has sailed on this one, so to speak. So 170 to 204 on support here. And then the all-time high is 580. Just to give you an idea of how significant that drop would be if it does happen. You can see why we don't want to touch this thing with a 10-foot pole at this point. But if it gets back down there and then it goes back up to these levels, 215% move. Now, there is a rumor of a spot Solana ETF. I don't know if that's going to happen this cycle, but if it does, the payback or the pullback on all the way back down to support on GSOL might not even happen. So I just want to point that out. So GXLM, this is looking bullish, but again, we got to get a confirmation on the weekly to confirm this is actually back within the channel. On the daily, it did actually get back above, but now we're back below. So we're pretty much basically just within the channel at this point. So support's going to be in the channel. So roughly about 34 to, I'd say, about $35. We're looking at this later date as kind of a, maybe 2 to 3 weeks after the spot Ether ETFs actually start trading. And then your resistance above head is 53 to 58. And then you have roughly about $70 respectively. So I'll just go a couple weeks out. So we'll say 46%, 61%, and then 90% respectively. You guys are probably wondering why I went a couple weeks out. Well, it's pretty simple. When the spot Bitcoin ETFs started trading, there was actually a pullback initially before it ended up launching to the upside. So I kind of anticipate that may possibly happen here as well. We'll just have to wait and see. So Mana is still not above the EMAs. Because of that, I would say support is still going to be basically the buy zone. So 1770 to about 20 and a quarter. The highs up here, which is also the all-time high at $70. So from the current price to the all-time highs, you're looking at 243%. If you manage to get it in a little bit lower, all the way to the all-time highs, it then becomes almost 300%. So Zcash, this one still actually looks quite bullish. I'm kind of surprised. So as you guys can see, even though the markets got tanked on today, Zcash is still up quite a bit. So it's made quite a recovery. I'm not sure what's going on, but it looks good to me. So Zcash, once again, support is 430 to about 510. The resistance you're looking at there is $8 to 970, and then the swing high all the way up here at 10 and a quarter. The reason why I say this zone is still support is because we do have a candle above the EMAs, but it has not confirmed on the weekly time frame. Okay, so I'm looking at this from a confirmation perspective. I'm not trying to predict where the move is going here. I'm trying to wait for the market to say, okay, we're green, we're golden, we're above the EMAs, it's time to go, right? So 70% move, 104% move, and then 117% move, respectively. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.